Racing games as a group are by no means as popular or as consistent as they once used to be, but that doesn't mean we don't get plenty of great racers every year either. 2020 and the years beyond are looking no different, and while there's obviously plenty of stuff that'll be announced eventually that we don't know about yet, we can still be confident that we'll be getting plenty of choices to get behind the wheel in games in the coming years. In this feature, we'll be taking a look at some games that are going to do just that. A few of the games we mentioned might be ones based on educated guesses that haven't been announced yet, while others we know are coming down the line. With all that said, let's get started. Project Cars 3. We've known for nearly a couple of years that Slightly Mad Studios are working on Project Cars 3, and while we haven't actually seen anything of the game, we're quite optimistic that it'll turn out great. Both previous games in the series were solid racing sims, while it'd also be foolish to doubt the chops of Slightly Mad Studios. There are never any guarantees with any game, of course, but Project Cars 3 is a game all racing enthusiasts are probably going to want to keep an eye on. Forza Motorsport 8. Microsoft doesn't really need to announce Forza Motorsport 8 officially, do they? Because even though they haven't done so, there's not a single person in the world wondering if there will be a new one. Of course there will be a new one. And with the larger Forza series having skipped 2019 in spite of its annual release cycle over the last decade, the chances of Motorsport 8 coming this year, most likely as a cross-gen launch title for the Xbox series, are looking quite high. Next, Gran Turismo. Of course, when you talk about Forza Motorsport, you've gotta talk about Gran Turismo. Though Sony and Polyphony Digital's legendary racing sim series has lost some steam to its direct competitor in recent years, the pedigree of the franchise still demands attention. It's been nearly 3 years since the last Gran Turismo game, almost 7 since the last numbered game in the series. A sequel, then, seems long overdue. The prospect of returning to Gran Turismo in a more traditional experience is indeed an exciting one. F1 2020. There are very few annual franchises that consistently manage to deliver great experiences and notable improvements every year, but Codemasters' F1 series is without a doubt one of those few franchises. F1 2019, for instance, was an excellent racing sim, a dream come true for hardcore fans of the genre. Not only is it a given that there will be a new F1 game this year, it also seems very likely, or at least we hope so, that it will be great. The one area where the series needs to make major improvements is visuals and presentation, and with the power of next-gen hardware, it should hopefully be able to do so easily and quickly. Ride 4. Through the sheer brute force of how many different games they put out each year, Italian developers Milestone have to be one of the most active studios in the racing genre. But it's not just about quantity. Many of their games are also genuinely solid, and last year's Ride 3 was a perfect example. Milestone have confirmed that Ride 4 is coming, and though we know very little beyond that, there's cause for optimism. Ride has been getting better with each game, while the love and passion Milestone have for bikes and for racing games as a whole cannot be overstated, and that's bound to reflect in the game's quality at least to some extent. Inertial Drift. Inertial Drift is one of the more unique games on this list. For starters, it's an arcade racer, not a racing sim, and there's few enough of those these days as it is. But Inertial Drift even approaches being an arcade racer in a very interesting way. It's a twin-stick racer that throws players into 1v1 races and puts all its emphasis on drifting, as the name suggests. Developers Level 91 Entertainment will have to ensure that they nail the execution of the core mechanics, and that the game isn't lacking in content or replay value. But if they do, Inertial Drift might just turn out to be one of the bigger surprises for racing fans this year. Forza Street. After having conquered the simulation and arcade subgenres, the Forza series is expanding elsewhere as well. Forza Street, developed by Electric Square, is currently in development for mobile devices, and the prospects are certainly interesting. There is the chance that things such as overly simplistic mechanics and excessive monetization could ruin the game, as often happens with mobile titles. But if Forza Street can successfully port the Forza experience to mobile devices, it'll be aces in our book. Project Cars Go. Forza isn't the only racing franchise that's making the jump to mobile devices soon. Slightly Mad Studios, who are now owned by Codemasters, are teaming up with GamingBolt to bring Project Cars Go to mobile devices. Like Forza Street, we're hoping that it will be able to successfully capture the authenticity of its console peers. And though there's very little that we know about the game, we're hoping it won't turn out to be a disappointment. Fast and Furious CROSSROADS. Fast and Furious CROSSROAds' announcement at the Game Awards was a bit of a weird one, not just because the game didn't seem big enough to warrant the show-ending announcement spot it was given, but also because visually, it looked a little rough, to put it mildly. We're not completely dismissing the possibility that this might be a good game though. With Slightly Mad Studios heading up development, there's a chance that this will be an accomplished racer. We just hope the devs are able to fix the game's graphics before it releases. Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game, 3. The Ride series is enough proof that Milestone know what they're doing, and that they can be pretty good at it, and though their licensed Monster Energy Supercross games don't usually hit that same level of quality, this too is a series that has a lot of potential. Monster Energy Supercross 2 brought about some much-needed improvements, and hopefully that upward trajectory will continue with Monster Energy Supercross 3. Vector. We're now entering the territory of games that many of us have actually played. Vector has been in early access since November of 2019, and already it's promising to be something special. Though the game is less about racing and more about surviving fast-paced zips through obstacle courses and death traps, and occasionally doing some shooting, Vector's incredible and slick sense of speed makes sure that not a second passes by when you're not having a blast. KARTKRAFT. KARTKRAFT has been in early access for far longer than Vector has, since November 2018, and though this is a game that many of you might not be aware of, as anyone who's played it will tell you, that's a mistake that needs to be immediately rectified. Combining kart racing with realistic simulation mechanics, KARTKRAFT is a unique and constantly enjoyable racer that's only been getting better thanks to its early access support. Here's hoping there's even better stuff waiting in the wings and that the game isn't too far from official launch. TT Isle of Man 2. Milestone aren't the only ones with bike racers in the pipeline. Developers KT Racing are also working on TT Isle of Man 2, scheduled for release on PC and consoles this year. The first game in 2018 was a surprisingly robust and mechanically solid experience, and what we've seen of the sequel so far has only looked like an improvement. Of course, one can never be too sure about a game until you actually get your hands on it, but this one looks promising. Circuit Superstars. Original Fire Games are trying something new and interesting with their upcoming Circuit Superstars. The game is looking to strike an interesting balance between arcade fun and realistic simulation, with mechanics and controls that are easy and accessible but also have some depth to them, allegedly at least. It's not the easiest balance to strike, but if Circuit Superstars can do so, and make sure it isn't short on content, it'll probably be very well received by racing fans. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, please hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to switch on the notifications bell icon next to it. That way you'll never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.